Hey y'all, I did a video earlier and it turned out to be 23 minutes and I figured that was way too long, so I'm going to cut this down and try to be a little bit more succinct here. And okay, we got one trough there, one trough along the west coast and a trough on the east coast. And we got a jet stream in just running along through those troughs and ridges kind of like that. So very active and somewhat meridional pattern here. And the polar vortex right now is up over Baffin Island. And it looks like we got a little bit of a Arctic jet across Canada and a subtropical jet down to the south. So a lot to look at here. So what's going to be happening for the upcoming week or so? Let's run this forward. Look at that, a big slug of very strong winds aloft coming into the west coast. And then when we get out to about 96 hours, watch out west. See, now we're building this huge ridge up into Alaska. And what that does is it brings a segment of the jet stream down south into the U.S. And that tends to push polar air southward. So it's kind of like a big vacuum cleaner. Whatever's sitting up in the northern Canadian area and the Arctic ice pack will go south. So what's going to be coming south? For that one, I like to look at the thickness chart. Okay, let me get this thing to stop. I don't like the way this looper takes off like that. All right, so here's the starting pattern. So the warm front is going to look like this. The black lines here are isobars, and the dashed red lines are thickness. 1,000 to 500 millibar thickness. And a good way to think of thickness is an average temperature value from around the surface up to about 18,000 feet. So this provides a good sample of the air mass conditions, not just at the surface, but at all layers up to the mid-levels. So what this is telling us is that up north, I was about to draw a high there. That's not what I want to do. I'll do K. That's what they did back in the old days for cold air. So very strong cold air mass over Baffin Island. That's kind of where it's centered. We're going to watch this as we advance this forward. So the fronts down south, we've got one going from Missouri up to Montana. It looks like a cold front going through Utah and Nevada, kind of like that. See that very strong packing of the thickness lines. In fact, we got this 540 line going all the way into the San Joaquin Valley. The 540 line, you see how it's labeled here, and it's this dashed blue line. This is kind of a transition line between rain and snow. It's used as a general rule of thumb. And that's all the way down into California, so that's a pretty good punch of cold air coming south. Okay, so what happens after this? Let's advance this forward. Okay, the system that we had out west moves east. And let's see, I'm going to stop this at about, let's see, we'll stop this at about Saturday. This is Saturday midday. So looking at the isobars, I see a low pressure area over Quebec. Maybe I'm not sure exactly where the fronts are, maybe kind of a weak one through the Great Lakes. But the main thing that I'm looking at is some sort of cold front coming out of Canada. So here the polar air is finally making its move. You can see that the core has started to push southward into Nunavut, around Rankin Inlet, whatever it's called now, out in this area, Yellowknife. So that's starting to advance southward as we start getting that ridging developing aloft. So what happens after that? Let's advance through the weekend. What I want you to look at here is this 540 line and kind of see how that fluctuates, because that'll kind of give you an idea what sort of advection is going on. And you can see it's starting to drop southward. We don't see the frontal boundary very well looking at just thickness and the isobars, but we know that the 540 line is advancing southward, so there's some cold air advection going on. And I can see that they're starting to get some packing around Kansas and Nebraska. So that's telling me that there's probably a cold front that's sneaking down into Texas and Oklahoma like that. So you see that going on right there. In fact, we can kind of draw this out like that. So this is the frontal boundary kind of seeping southward through the eastern U.S., through the central U.S., and this is about Saturday. Going in, no, this is Sunday afternoon, so yeah, okay, yeah, that's Sunday. So let's advance this a little bit forward. Okay, so going into Monday, we're still seeing that boundary moving south. It's going very slowly. There's not much of a kick behind it. But at this point now, it's moving through Texas, and we're seeing the 540 line sinking down into Kansas now. So we're starting to bring some of the cold air south, and definitely a lot of cool air south moving into the northeast U.S. Now what's happening here, look at Texas here. This is Tuesday morning. If we look at the isobars, we got low pressure there out over West Texas, and we've got a warm front kind of extending. Well, this is probably a warm front, cold front combination, or combination. It's either, it could be a stationary front, I don't know. But that's going from about the Rio Grande eastward, and then we've got another segment of this cold front like that. This is kind of an unusual orientation. We see this with deeper, stronger Arctic outbreaks going into the western U.S., and the cold front is oriented kind of like that. Normally it's more southwest northeast, but this is different what we have here. Center of the cold air is over Hudson Bay. Hasn't really moved very far south, and most of it has actually gone into the northeast U.S., and we're just getting the dribs and drabs here in Texas. So not much of a cool down for here. So moving forward into Wednesday, the front continues to push south, and we're probably going to get some rain and showers associated with this. There's probably going to be a little bit of overrunning of that frontal surface, but here it is. Looks like a kind of a weak system moving up northeast along the northeast coast, centered at Virginia right now. Now what happens going into 144 hours? Cold air advances into Florida, clears Texas. So I've advanced this up to Saturday, February 27th. Now look at the cold air. It is advanced southward into Manitoba. This is basically the polar vortex, and it's pushed south. So this is the start of some very cold air coming down from Canada now. Where is the cold air, the front? Well, it looks like the southern front is all the way down into Mexico and into the Gulf. But I think there's a secondary push looking something like that. It doesn't follow the thickness lines too well, but I can see it's getting started right in here. So this is going to be the next outbreak of cold polar air starting up in Alberta next weekend after next. And remember, we're 192 hours out, so this is kind of like a little bit of witchcraft, if you want to call it that. But it's fun to look at, and we can kind of see how the models do in verifying it. So now we're at Saturday midday, and you can see now we've got a very good polar Arctic outbreak starting to form up, pushing into Montana, into the Dakotas. And this is going to be a very potent kick of cold air if this actually happens. You can see the core of the polar air is over western Ontario. What happens after that? Let's go into Monday. Already by Sunday, we haven't even gotten to Monday. Sunday midday, it is already all the way south into Texas. So this is a classic norther. This may be the first one of the year. I don't think we've had a good cold outbreak like this all year that I know of. We had that blizzard back in December, but I don't remember a really good cold punch with that, to tell you the truth. We barely got anything here in the part of Texas where I'm at. So anyway, yeah, this punches through very sharply. 1050 high there. That's not record-breaking, but that's pretty high up there. That's a very, very strong Arctic outbreak. And you can see the 540 line is dragged all the way south into past the DFW area into central Texas. So this is going to be something to keep an eye on here. So I would say winter is probably not quite over. What happens after that? Well, we're getting way far out there. This is 336 hours, but you know what the heck? We'll just check it out real quick. It's telling us that there's still a little bit of polar air out there. I don't know if that's going to kick southward or not. We may be done after that system, but anyway, we'll check it out. Getting into March anyway, so that's going to be the start of storm season. And we'll end this with a very quick look at the Pacific. So this is right now. I don't know if you've looked at any of the satellite stuff I've done, but we'd be looking at the jet stream. Well, maybe not like that. Jet stream would probably be running something like that, just based off the cloud patterns. You can see that it's north of these baroclinic leafs that we have here, and it kind of divides the closed cell cumulus in the wake of the cold fronts behind the open cell cumulus that we have here. So we can kind of use this to kind of verify the upper air analysis charts, that kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, a lot of weather coming in from the Pacific and a lot of stuff going up in Canada, so we'll keep an eye on that. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and keep an eye on that weather. Maybe it'll get interesting. We'll have to see. Looks like a fun 7, 8, 9, 10 days ahead.